me, yes, the one and all Paul Friends, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe on call. And tonight we have Doug. Say hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
And we have Russ. I assume Russ is still here. Okay. He might not be still here. Yes, here, not talking. That's fine. So, tonight we're going to start off with scatapacks and hopefully get to drone construction. Um, so, scatapacks are a very interesting thing, which scatapacks and fighters are the one thing that happened that really annoys plasma people just because of it allows a drone using race to actually launch a lot of drones in a short period of time. Now, um, any any qualified shuttle that's admin, MRS, MLS, MSS, which is interesting. Why mine we got a mine lane shuttle which you can use for a scatapack, and fighters can be used as a scatapack. Obviously, the one thing that you cannot do is there are no pilots. Sorry, no pilots or kamikazes, and even in any pirate empire, including the Hydrants. When it comes to reminder, Kerbal shuttles cannot be armed or launched as a real or dummy scatapack. We'll get the dummy scatapacks in just a little bit of time. Most you can basically put any kind of drones you want on a scatapack, except there's certain exceptions. Type 3s, multi-warheads, starfish, and stingrays cannot be placed in a scatapack. And this includes Type 3 drones on fighters used as scatapacks, even if those fighters normally can be armed with Type 3s. So, sorry, if you want to use a fighter as a scatapack, you can't use those Type 3s. You can't put those on. Now, as one interesting part is, of course, there are some fighters and some shuttles that actually have plasma torpedoes. Now, you can, in those cases, which they're normally Type D plasmas, as scatapacks. So, I never thought about that, but in theory, what a plasma-faring race can do is they can use their shuttle. They're one of their fighters that launch plasma Ds, and possibly even one that fires a plasma F. I'm not sure if there's. I think maybe there's some two-space fighters where you can actually have a plasma F and plasma Ds, which means you can use this as a scatter pack. Strange as it sounds, to launch all of them at the same time. Crazy, but you can do it. But that's one of those neat little things that for those flying plasma empires that you can do. Just a reminder. Now, obviously, the big issue with using a fighter as a scatapack is that, just like shuttles, after it launches, it stops. Which means if you want to reuse that fighter, whether you want to put a pilot in it and have it fly around, or anything like that, you need to recover it. You need to recover it. Is what you need to do. Um,
And just to clarify,
yeah.
you mean after it's launched all of its munitions, then it stops
Right.
because it moves normally
Right.
on whatever plot you put it on.
Right. Right. Whether it and that's one thing that's one thing we didn't discuss last. We haven't discussed it at all in seeking weapons. One thing that you can do with seeking weapons is you can either target, a ship, or you can target a hex. You can do ballistic targeting on a hex. Now, when it comes to scatterpacks, that makes a lot of sense when it comes to ballistic targeting, because what that allows you to do is that scatter pack will just go right for that. And I have to double check.
Double check what?
Sorry, my wife um, texted me. Um, I have to double check to see if it actually requires an active control channel when when it has a ballistic targeting. I think it does not, and that's why you'd want to do that. Because after that,
Well, there's also a tactical reason.
Mhm.
If basically if you want to see if it's a targeted shuttle, if it's got a target and the target moves, it's going to move to follow the target. But if you have it on a ballistic course, it's not going to pursue the target. It's just going to dump its munitions when it's time.
Right, and one thing you can
So
do
it's
is
part of the deception thing.
right, and part of it when it comes to scatter packs is that you can have either two ways of launching. Number one, you can launch them all as a certain ship. Number two, you can actually have it as a random targeting. That is that.
Can you mix it up with
I
multiple targets?
don't think you can. I'd have to double check on that. I'm pretty sure you can. By the way, to convert that scatter pack back into a shuttle, it takes 32 impulses, i.e., it takes one deck crew action.
But you can also reload it if you want to.
Right, this can be done simultaneously with unloading any scatter pack drones. All drones, other than those carried on the drone launch rails, must be unloaded before the shuttle can be used. So, actually, no. This is I think this is talking about if you take a scatter pack or a fighter, and you convert it into a scatter pack, you can convert it back into a normal shuttle, but it requires one deck crew action. And drones are loaded at scatter pack as if, or a fighter, right? Standard deck crew action rules. Now, drones used for scatter pack are drone for reserve stocks, i.e., drone storage, or the racks, which prepares the launch. Now, the drones loaded onto a scatter pack at the start of the scenario under weapon status 2 or 3 are drawn from the ship's reload stockpile and do not cost any BPV since they were paid for under the rules for paying for drones, which is you pay for the drones in the drone racks, and then you get the reloads for free. Any drones in the reload stockpile not prohibited can be loaded. That's a reminder. This is not a sneaky way of actually getting prohibited drones.
Extras.
Well,
Yeah.
prohibited drones on the scatter pack. No, sorry. It explicitly says you can't do like Type 3s. You can't do Type 3s. Sorry. Targeting. You can what enemy ship or other unit or object or hex of ballistic targeting F4.4. Note the hex cannot trigger a release. It is a scatter pack primary target. What's the distance hexes from this target which drone will release? So basically, you can have it so that it's basically a roaming nuclear space mine, or capture mine. I call it a capture mine, where you can set it for a certain distance. So until the ship that scatter pack is targeted on gets within 5 hexes, it won't launch. Or you can set it up to be like 35 hexes, which is max range. And so whenever it's ready, it can then immediately launch. But you can also have it so it won't actually launch until it gets closer, which is kind of a sneaky tactic to use. Because in theory, you can have a scatter and it can always go towards the enemy ship. But the thing is, the enemy will not know if it's a scatter pack or if it's a regular shuttle. Because in theory, a piloted shuttle can act like a seeking shuttle. It's not until it's actually identified as a seeking shuttle or scatter pack that, using labs, that you actually can tell whether it's actually a seeking shuttle or a piloted one, a non-seeking shuttle. Also, how many points of damage scored on a scatter pack after launch, but not counting unrepaired damage, will cause the drones to release prematurely. So you can actually have it so that if someone fires a scatter pack and 1 point of damage, boom. Even though it might not reach the 5 hexes that previously was programmed, it will launch. And 4 will all target on the primary target or randomly different targets. If random, what size class? So it's either all on a primary target or it's random. That's it. But you can tweak it so that it only accepts a certain size class as a target. For example, if there is let's say 2 cruisers, but there's 4 destroyers, but you want to make sure the drones get targeted on the cruisers, you just say, okay, well, size class 3. Well, the drones only target size class 3. And that means they won't be targeted. They'll still be random, but it won't ever have drones launch at those destroyers, which would be size class 4. Movement, obviously it's just standard. Seeking drone scatter packs cannot use erratic maneuvers because it's not being piloted. So there's release uses, of course, the multi-warheads release step when it comes to where in the impulse it actually gets released. And scatter packs cannot be released their drones within a quarter turn. That's 8 impulses of the time it was launched. And or if the prior range is less than 2 hexes. So you can't have it so the scatter pack releases closer than 2 hexes. Wow. Did not know that.
From its target.
Yep.
Yeah, from its target.
From its primary target, yes.
And that's to primarily keep you from overwhelming somebody with the scatter pack instantly. So it's probably a game balance thing.
Yeah. Agreed.
That way you can't tractor somebody and just drag them to that and say, here, eat all my drones, and shot.
Well, that reminds me, of course, if you tractor somebody, so that they can't get away from the drones, you can still launch a scatter pack at them.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you what you do is you would do a ballistic targeting.
Yep.
So instead of targeting on the ship, you say, okay, I want to do ballistic targeting, but when it comes to launching the drones, it then will, do specify primary target. All drones will go on this target. So you have to. So that will allow the scatter pack to actually get, outside the range 2 hexes. Outside of range 1. Can't be less than 2. So that means it can launch at 2, but not 1. So when it gets to range 2, boom, the drones will launch. And of course, drones on scatter packs are just like drones on ships. They are, when it comes to directionality, the shuttle might be going like direction A, but it can launch the drones going directions C or D or E, whatever.
Any direction.
In any direction.
Except for the fighter. Yeah, there's some little oogie barts in here, but yeah. Like, if you're going to do it ballistically, that allows you to round that other rule.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But also, just a random thought. can you also have a bunch of dogfight drones in there and just set random targeting and size class drones
Yeah.
and use them to take out enemy drones
Yep.
as an anti-drone device? Not to be confused with the ADD, but just an extra way of killing a swarm of drones. So if you're a Klingon, the original design for the scatter pack was as a way for a Klingon to get a big wave of drones out in one shot and surprise or overwhelm a Fed player from the old classic original game. And then, once this became tech that's available to everybody, then there's some other tactical considerations that can come into play, such as loading it up with dogfight drones and using it to go after fighter waves or drone waves. So bear that in mind, new players. If there are multiple uses for everything in the game, and those uses aren't always written in they aren't always written in the rules. And if you want a good resource for that, go into the old captain's logs. I mean, it's a good reason to build a quick library of the captain's log PDFs or hard copies if you see them at a old bookstore or something like that, because you get extra like tidbits like that out of those publications. Plus, listening to people like Paul.
Yep. Because
You're welcome.
you're welcome. Thank you.
There's a plug for ADB, in a sense. So you were saying?
Yeah. Remind me. Just want to check something. Okay. 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 Pass through with okay. Gotta make sure I got recording properly. Sorry, just double check. Had some issues with recording earlier. But anyway, moving onward and forward. I already mentioned 2x is away. Okay. When it comes to random targeting, each drone is numbered by the owning player when the scatter pack is launched. The first drone, the player determines number one, is targeted on the primary target. If that target is acceptable, like programming, i.e. not a ballistic, the second drone is accepted by the nearest enemy other than the primary target, and so on in the order numbered them from when the scatter pack was launched. The drones will accept targets at ranges 0 to will accept targets at ranges of 0 or 1, although the scatter pack's primary target must be at least 2 hexes. Wow. And each drone must have its selected target in the FA arc. Right. When it's placed on the map, yeah. Exception: Type 6 drones will accept friendly units as targets, which is weird.
What was the Type 6 again? Dogfight?
Yeah, those are dogfight drones.
So you'll accept friendly targets. Huh. I think you have to specify, though.
Yeah.
And I can see why you would do it.
Right.
There is one obscure reason why that I could think of, and that is to prevent capture of another unit, or to randomly to help randomly target other units. So if you have like a shuttle or a fighter that is in danger of being captured for whatever reason, you target that with the dogfight drones, and if it gets sucked, if you can kill it to keep it from being captured. But if it gets sucked into a unit and captured, when you suck it into, or when you dock it, drag it into the shuttle bay or whatever, it accepts that capturing unit as the new target. So you're still going to damage the enemy one way or the other there. You're either going to kill the unit you don't want them to capture, or you're going to put that dogfight drone as damage against the unit that was doing the capture. So I think that's probably why they have that rule in there like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I forgot big, big whoopsies that I forgot to mention, which is when it comes to admin shuttles. Um, Other types of shuttles could carry more or less or fewer in their rules. Some MRS, for example, carry up to normal shuttles can carry 6 spaces of drones. MRS, for example, can carry up to 8 spaces of drones. Just I forgot. I think that's kind of important to tell you how many drones. So, like for Type 6 drones, you could actually, for a regular admin shuttle, you can load it up with 12 Type 6 drones, which is interesting. Um,
Very helpful when you're trying to kill a fighter squadron or
yep.
deter it, make it turn away.
Wow, that's a cool idea.
Hmm.
That's one way to protect you from the fighters. Yeah. The question, when it comes to fighters, would you want most probably? I'm wondering if you would want it set a primary target. Actually, yeah. One theory you could do a primary target because if you had a primary target as a fighter, well, if the fighter goes away, that's a bad thing.
But yeah, or you could just target the carrier
Right. Well, I was
and
saying
and
it wouldn't be bad because if the fighter
this
lands on the carrier, yeah, then the carrier is the target.
right. And the other side of that though is if you target the carrier, you can have the drones set to randomly target size class X.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So if the carrier goes away, that's not a problem. You're probably winning that scenario. If the but if you target like a fighter and the fighter explodes and it's gone, then your scatter pack is going to stop. It's not going to be effective anymore.
Okay. What's that? Wow. Okay.
That's a tactical consideration.
Just a reminder: dogfight drones placed in scatter packs are treated slightly different manner when it comes to under control. When it comes to random, if the type dogfight drones in a scatter pack are designated to accept random targets, the conditions of FD 735, which is basically the guiding unit must have lock on to each target, are ignored. And the drones will and must accept any target, including friendly ones, as an exception, to 7.341, even if the scatter pack itself has been distracted from its original target. Randomly targeted, wow, targeted
Oh, that's just
dogfighters
mean.
cannot accept a target more than 8 hexes away from the release point, and they will accept targets at range 0 or range 1. If no acceptable
Hmm.
target are in range, the target drones will not function are removed. The size class of the target can be set as per the normal size class number 4. This forms an exception to F3.421. I don't know that rule off the top of my head. And the dogfight drones are randomly targeted. Will attempt to acquire a cloak unit within their detection range, but if they fail to gain the lock on, we'll target the next acceptable target. So interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, dogfight drones are.
In other words, they just don't discriminate.
No, they don't.
But on the plus side, they go nearest targets first, so as long as you don't screw up horribly, you should be able to use them against enemy fighters.
Yeah, and that's wrong. Oh.
Just remember not to have your fighters near it
Yeah,
when
no,
it
I
pops.
just realized that since you can't, since they're
You
free
don't get
enemies.
you don't get to choose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't say only do
And they
enemy.
have active terminal
No.
guidance, so they're just going to go out and go hi.
Yeah, your fighter pilots would definitely appreciate it if you don't do something silly like that one Lyran captain for the first carrier group who killed all the, not killed all the fighters, but killed a lot of the fighters because he raised his ESGs because the Zanies were coming in with their drones and he forgot that there were fighters.
Yeah.
Whoopsies.
And just as a general rule of thumb, it's not an automatic kill for the drones. They're going to cause X amount of damage to a fighter. The fighters often have defenses like chaff, so they're not necessarily going to get hit and killed by the hit and hurt or killed by it. But it's a major problem for each individual fighter when they have the drone coming in on them. So it's really a good deterrence thing that could potentially theoretically wipe out a significant amount of the enemy fighters that they're targeting.
Wow.
What's that? What
Okay,
made you go
this
wow?
is one that I've this is a rule I've never read before.
Right.
Transfer of drones. In combat situation, a captain might use a scatter pack, not a multi-warhead drone, to transfer drones to a friendly ship. Basically, okay,
Mhm.
it's weird, but you can do it. Um,
Yeah.
you can
Cut
either
tracking.
buy the only means of doing this is landing a scatter pack with drones still loaded by a tractor, or by beaming a pilot aboard. Now, there's also one thing which it mentions here. Okay, which is FD 7.3913. The scatter pack could be launched with a pilot on board. It's not kamikaze, but in this case, it would merely go inert on launch, but the pilot would take over. The scatter pack could not launch drones or fire a phaser or take actions prohibited by an inert scatter pack, but could be piloted as a normal shuttle to the other ship. A friend, a scatter pack can be landed aboard a friendly unit which does not have drone capability. However, if a unit doesn't have that capability, it cannot program the shuttle as a scatter pack or use the drones for any purpose. So, sorry, you can't just. So
You can't
basically,
just give it to a frigate that doesn't have drone racks on it and expect it to use it as a scatter pack.
right?
Basically, that's what they're saying.
Exactly, exactly. If a drone doesn't have, if a, if a unit doesn't have drone capability, e.g., all Gorn, Romulan, IC, Hydrogen, Tholian, Andromedan, Submarine, and most Lyrans, it cannot use the drones in any way, except the unit could load these foreign weapons into a corresponding foreign fighter, but only during a scenario. Wow. So, wow. So that's telling me that in theory, okay, that's a crazy idea, which is basically you can use a scatter pack as a kind of rearming center on a non-drone ship. You just have to have that foreign fighter that takes drones, and it can take the scatter packs from the drones from the scatter pack and put them in the fighter to reload it, to rearm it.
Yeah, but doesn't When you buy the foreign fighter, don't you actually get the stuff that goes with it?
Well, no, this is not.
So
Um, this is the only corresponding foreign fighters. That's only during a scenario. Um, I'd have to actually look exactly what's defined as a foreign fighter. Um, I'm assuming,
it's any fighter that's not one that of your faction.
but my question is, how about if it's the same empire, such that your ship is incapable of um, launching drones?
Well, to have the foreign fighter, I think don't you have to have like the dedicated fighter bay thing? You don't just use them in lieu of shuttles.
I'd have to look.
Am I correct about that?
Hold on, let me look up the rule. I got 89, 662. Okay. Okay, any shuttle box without a ready rack holding drones can still load one drone on a fighter. However, because the drone must be carried to the box by overhead cranes, a service car, or any heavy lifting team, it takes twice as many deck crew actions and could be done by a ship that which had no fighters or ready racks, but which had drones on board. The drone must be brought to the bay before this procedure can begin. And in case of, so basically, it's saying in this case, it doesn't have to be a foreign fighter. It just has to be a ship that doesn't have the ready racks. So, they mentioned foreign fighters, but it could, from looks of it's just that you have a ship which does not have the ready racks for the fighter. So, if it's your own empire and you just have a ship that doesn't have drone racks and therefore can't control the drones, i.e., can't use it as a scatter pack, you can still use it to reload. If you land one of your friendly fighters on board your ship,
Hmm.
you should be able
And then
to.
you just take the time to reload it and stuff.
Right, you should be able to rearm it. Put drones on the fighter from the scatter pack.
No, good lord. Okay.
Hey, that is,
Yeah, I
I
get it.
I I read that and went, wow, man.
Well, for a game that is basically supposed to be incredibly abstract, it has some massively very specific rules at
Yeah, well,
times.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's one thing about Starfleet battles. That is the big thing about Starfleet battles. When it comes to Starfleet battles, um, most of the rules can be removed. The only reason a lot of those rules are there to begin with are to explicitly state the interactions with other rules. You know, that's one thing with
Yeah.
Federation Commander. They trimmed down the rules, and in a lot of cases, and I actually, if I recall correctly, they might even state it in the rule book that basically do what makes sense. You know, the
Oh
reason
man.
why ADB created all the rules and specifically the interaction for the rules is because of issues with the um back in the day. Get off my lawn. That when SCP began and they came into like conventions, different players had different understandings of the rules, so they had to be explicit about how that interaction worked. So it's that's why SCP has a
Yeah.
lot of rules, and because a lot of the rules you don't even use because of, as I said, they're specific interactions.
And some of them are just adjudications too.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, what makes common sense to me at one time is a justification for another person. And those two different justifications might not work together. They might not have the same jive. It's like, well, if your ship can't do this, then you shouldn't be able to do that. But then ADB says, well, we really kind of, you should be able to do it this other nitpick anyway. And I'm like, ah. Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started on midterm speed changes. That was such a crazy thing for many years until Steve Cole sat down and explained it. And they went, and then Steve Petrick went, oh.
You mean the guy that was sitting right next to him?
It actually was.
Yeah.
I remember that. That was crazy. And just a reminder, when it comes to recovered scatter packs, again, it's 32 impulses, one deck reaction, to convert it from a scatter pack that, and make it back into a shuttle that can be then used. Right. That is a reminder. Wow. Forgot about that part. Which is, in theory. Well, actually not in theory. To say the very least, you got to be careful about getting scatter packs close to enemy. Enemy ships, because the enemy can actually transport a pilot onto the ship and have it go inert.
No.
Can't?
Yes and no. Yeah, you can capture it. You have to capture it.
Right.
I don't think it's automatic.
Right.
Might have to look that up.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to look up real quick.
But I think it is it's considered guarded, and it can be captured. Like booby-trapped kind of thing.
If an armed scatter pack is dragged into enemy shuttle bay, it explodes as an armed suicide shuttle, i.e., don't do that. Identify your shuttles, an enemy shuttle, before you bring it into your shuttle bay.
Yeah.
The force of the explosion of a scatter pack is equal to 3 times the number of drone spaces carried. If 6 drone spaces were carried, the explosive force would be equal to 18 points. Booyah. However, a scatter pack captured by enemy boarding parties under D6, that's D762, will regard the captured side as a friendly and all sides to be enemy for the purpose of this rule. Remember that. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Before it's released to drones can be relaunched by the side that originally owned the scatter pack. Okay. Yeah. And it's a reminder that tracking okay. Seeking shuttles. Boarding parties may attempt to capture and board and capture seeking shuttles. Roll 1 die when the boarding party arrives. And okay, deactivate takes over the shuttle. Okay, booby traps and the shuttle have been destroyed by the boarding party. Or the other one is issue in doubt. Roll again. So for normal boarding party, you've got a 1 in 6 chance to deactivate and capture. 2 in 5, it's going to be, I don't know. And if you roll a 6, suicide. Okay, booby traps. Okay, have destroyed the boarding party. The shuttle continues on its mission. These booby traps can be voluntarily deactivated by the owner player prior to launch.
Yeah, if you want.
So if you use commandos, they have 50% chance of capturing it, and 4/5 chance in doubt, and then of course a 6, it goes boom. Well, actually, sorry, the shuttle doesn't go boom. You die.
Oopsie.
Yeah. So just a reminder that if you want to try to capture that little sucker, it might cost you.
It's got a good chance it is a good chance of taking out your boarding party that you're doing it with.
It's got a 1 in 6 chance of taking out your boarding party. Yeah. No matter if it's a commando or normal.
Yeah, and it's like hey, that's why they have red shirts.
Very true. Very true.
Remember, it takes out the boarding party, not you. Yeah.
Unless you are in the boarding party.
So. And don't forget, if you want to use your legendary captain to try as part of a boarding party, you can do that.
Also, a reminder:
you can get a modification.
Cripple Scatterpacks are not forced to discard their drones when crippled as fighters are. Crippled fighters are. So.
Oh yeah, it's like it functions until you destroy it.
Right. And of course, the one thing I mentioned previously, and I'll talk about it now, which is one thing you can do, and it's called a pseudo scatterpack. Basically, it's a scatterpack shuttle which can be launched without any drones on board. This is basically for those of you who know about suicide shuttles. These are just like suicide shuttles. But you can be pseudo suicide shuttles, which means basically can be prepared immediately, because the command guidance is simpler. The scatterpacks will. I'm just looking one. It requires 1 turn to prepare a shuttle as a dummy scatterpack, or unprepared. So, you can say, okay, that means, okay, you have to have at least 1 turn to create a pseudo scatterpack. But to create a pseudo suicide shuttle, it's immediate. It's very simplistic in it. Obviously, this is a shell game, is the whole idea here. The pseudo scatterpack is under the same restrictions as standard scatterpack. It must land. It must land to have the scatterpack guidance removed, and its phaser cannot be fired until it has been done. If it's destroyed, there's no explosion, and it's just reported as a shuttle. So basically, the only thing this would be for is if you think your opponent is going to try to ID that shuttle, in which case you can say, oh, it's a scatterpack. How many drones on it? 0. So,
I believe that it's actually seeking or not seeking is what it'll come back as. You don't actually say this is a scatter pack or this is a suicide shuttle. You just say it's a seeking drone. And then it's up to the identifying player to guess. Whereas when you're trying to identify drones, that might be different. I'm not sure. I think you get to identify what kind of drones they are. I think there's a difference in that. And that's a crucial difference. So
Mm-hmm. Da, 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 da. I'm just wondering if I could find it real quick. If I can't. I was hoping.
it might be underneath the rule for using the rule for using labs.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find. I don't know where. Okay, lab is G4. Okay. Okay. Shuttles can be also identified by labs. A successful attempt reveals if the shuttle is manned or unmanned, and if it's following seeking course, seeking weapon, but not pursue plotting. But not if it carries drones or a suicide bomb. It will reveal target of the seeking weapon, seeking shuttle as if it were a drone. Note that a stationary shuttle will list its targeting even if it's not moving. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, you can launch a shuttle and go speed 0 and just target something.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is
So if it enters and you have a suicide guy, then it's basically a sitting mine.
Yeah, the reason why.
And if it's a scatter pack, then you're not letting the thing get close enough to like keep it from going off.
Yeah, what I was saying that's interesting is basically then what is the point of creating a pseudo scatter pack?
Deception. It's basically it's the same as creating a fake a fake suicide shuttle. It's one of those things where you can just look at the designer, sigh, shrug, and move on.
Right. Yeah.
Because they literally, it's a duplicative purpose.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, it takes up a whole one deck crew action to perform versus a
and it takes up space in the rules.
You just go boom, launch, done. There's no deck crew actions required.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those rules as written by engineers and overly thought of, and it's like I don't think they realized at the time that they were just basically doing the exact same thing that they'd already covered in another part of the rules, only making it more complicated because they were using a different section of the rules to do it. So if you were the editor, if they had an outside editor looking at this and the purposes of the thing, that outside editor would like circle that with a big red thing and say, no. Just do it the same way you do this other thing.
Right. Well, I was just thinking about it. There is one possibility here. And just one. And it still doesn't make complete sense. But, yeah.
Self-justification is a powerful thing.
Yeah. Which is that after you can prepare a shuttle as a scatter pack shuttle with no drones, but at some later point, you can actually load drones, and then you should be able to launch it. Now the question, yeah, because when you recover it, you have to. Okay, the thing is to create a scatter pack. I was just wondering one thing, which is when it comes to loading it up, do you have to first make it a scatter pack and then load it? Because I play too much tournament games where the scatter pack's already created because it's weapon status 3. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's possible that you could be loading you could be prepping an extra scatter pack and then just decide to launch it as a fake.
Right.
but that's like way overthinking the whole purpose when you could still do the thing the
Right.
other way.
Oh, agreed. Oh, I agree. I totally understand. Okay. Just interesting. Interesting.
Now there is one other bending of the rules that could come under, and that is if you have a fleet action and everybody can use scatter packs, that would be an easy way for a ship to give another ship a shuttle that's ready to be used as a scatter pack, even though it's not loaded. So,
That is true.
but it's like, but then again, I'm overthinking that too,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Agreed. Agreed. Now, obviously, the one benefit, as I mentioned, when it comes to scatter pack, is that you can one way of getting a lot of drones on the board in a short period of time. So in large fleets, now the big issue with scatter packs, and you always have to remember this if you're a drone using race, which is of course control channels.
hmm,
Um, Once you launch those drones, you you
they
you
suck up channels
you better have the control channels to actually control the drones. Otherwise,
unless you're doing dogfight drones.
right, dogfight drones are a specific exception to the rule. Um, so obviously keep that in mind if you use scatterpacks because that's one of the issues actually even in tournament play when it comes to Klingon. The Klingon doesn't have a double control rating, has a single control rating, and a scatterpack can hold what 6 drones. So if you launch your like the standard Klingon tournament ship, which you have 2 drone racks, like you have 2 drone racks and an ad rack. So in theory, you have 3 drone racks, but I'm not gonna get pedantic here at the moment. Um, the 2 drone racks, and if you launch the 2 drones from the ship, then you launch the scatter pack, and then the scatter pack it blossoms. That's what it's called. It blossoms and therefore releases all its drones. Now you got 8 drones on the board. Well, there's a problem. What drones are you going to drop control for? Are you
Yeah.
going
The other thing is you can it's not just number of drones, but it's number of spaces of drones. So a lot of times you can get around that by using your Type 4, like your swap out
right?
in your initial loadout to have the Type 4 in there. You might put 1 or 2 of those in your scatter pack, and you launch 4 drones from your scatter pack to max out your capacity
Yep.
with what you have on the board.
Yep.
And again, if you're playing a subtlety ship like the Klingon, then timing is everything. And if you've got your timing down, you might be able to have it so that you can have 6 drones in the scatter pack and still turn around and go after the enemy with your 2 drones out on the board because you can put them in a position where those drones have to be dealt with or impact before the scatter pack goes off.
Right. And then
Or
hmm,
or you could in your loadout load a pair of active terminal guidance drones, dogfight drones, in the scatter pack because they take up a half a space each. And then your Type 4 and a couple of Type 1s, and you're only taking up 4 spaces of drones.
right.
And when it launches, everything's still targeted on the enemy ship in the tournament size, but you have your 2 drones out, then the Type 4, and even though he's going to know that you have a mix of drones over there because you're able to keep them all out on the board, he's got 8 drones coming in on him now. You're welcome.
Right. And just
I think you can have that off the top of my head.
hmm and
That's if you can have dogfight drones for
right
the
now,
Klingon.
reminder to y'all. Doug said something not quite correct.
Oh,
No, when it comes to dogfight
It
drones,
happens.
that's correct. But not all ATG drones are, well, ATG drones are not dogfight drones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
That's
So
not,
you could have dogfight drones in there,
right.
and they
But,
have their own. Do they not have their own active terminal guidance,
well,
or is
dogfight
it
drones
just a
do,
space thing?
but okay, according to the rules, all submissions include sub munitions, sorry, including ATG drones and plasma torpedoes, must be guided on the impulse of release. After which they may be
Okay.
released from their to their own control.
Okay. Gotcha. So you could have the dogfight drones. It goes off. Then the next impulse, you release the dogfight drones to their own thing and launch your regular two
No, no,
drones, and
no.
you've got eight
Dogfight drones
drones on the
don't
board.
require don't require that. Don't require that you actually control them. Dogfight drones don't, but ATG
Right.
drones do, and plasma
Okay.
torpedoes also do.
Okay.
Now,
So you could do sort of what I was saying, sort of theory.
and the one thing obviously that was not mentioned, which is when it comes to tournament play, and crack you could do a normal play too, but I don't. You can do a normal play too, which is it's called basically it's a kind of a fake out, and that is you hold your scatter pack for your first turn, and during that first turn, what do? You if you have 6 Type 1 drones in your scatter pack, and then you unload a a drone, or actually 2 drones. You're working on unloading 2 drones from the scatter pack and put it in drone storage. And then when you launch it, your opponent doesn't know whether you got Type 4s in there or not. Now, that's always a guessing game, especially if see, that's also another thing which you can then do with if you put Type 4 drones in your scatter pack, but you delay the launching instead of on the first turn, you delay the launching to make it look like that you had unloaded a Type 1 drone from your scatter pack and then launched. And then they won't know if it was unloaded or if actually it's a Type 4 drone, which is why you always lab the drones as best you can anyway, because I'm used to playing in Andromedans where you don't have that many drones. You have 2 labs, and there are a lot more drones than labs.
Yeah, and you're looking at trying to basically outrun all that shit, or hit them with a space mine,
Yep. Yep.
T-bomb.
A T-bomb. Yep. That's one of the wonderful things that they get. Which is always the weird part when it comes to tournament play, and that is that in theory, well, you can, and the tournament rules allow this, which is the Andromeda is allowed to take a PA mine instead of a T-bomb, which is a nice little thing. But I've never found a PA mine that useful in all the years I've played. And I've tried the PA mine. That's kind of cool. The one thing that a PA mine really is quite nice at, which is finding out what torpedo is a pseudo. That's the only good thing that it allows you to do. Well, the thing is, the T-bomb can act as mobile terrain, not mobile as in moves, but it's mobile. It's mobile in the case that you get to define where that terrain shows up, and therefore, people have a tendency of want to avoid getting 10 points more of damage against a shield. You know, most people.
Oh, people are selfish like that.
Yep. Wow. It's really raining out.
Yep.
Yep. As
Yep.
it,
Yep. Yep.
I saw there was a possibility of thunderstorms, which would mean there's a possibility I might lose my internet. Well, actually, I won't. I wouldn't lose my internet. I have my internet on UPS, so I definitely could make it through. Doesn't matter. You just might see the lights go off, and I'm
Yeah.
doing this in the dark, which would be interesting. But anyhow, I think that we'll wrap it up for this evening. Well, actually, we're gonna have a part 3 when it comes to drones. I will work towards going through the drone construction rules next week.
Yeah, that's a whole night by itself.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that this
Well,
Scott Packs
it
one can't
can
take
be.
nearly as long as they did, but obviously, well, I made a mistake. I made a goof.
Yeah. Oh, just to let you and anybody else listening that might be interested know, I did the contract for gamers this week. We'll be
Awesome.
going back to the same venue.
Okay.
Uh,
Couldn't find anything
I'm
better
only
or
doing
anything
the same
cheaper.
venue because, yeah, we're only doing the same venue again right now because the one group, the Botanna group's coming in with us, and hopefully that will mean more people coming in
Okay, great.
to cover the cost. So that just means that in the next few weeks, around personal stuff, I'll have to uh, start prepping all the. I want to try and get it done by Memorial Day weekend. Get the new poster done and get the site set up for online registration. So there's that. And if you want to hit up any of the Starfleet Battles threads on Facebook and say, hey, look, to like 100 people, I run event XYZ. I do demos and stuff like that at this particular small convention. Is
Yeah.
there anything you guys would like to see that would be something outside of a normal weekend play that might be a long scenario or a mini campaign or something that could be done over a couple of days? Is there anything you guys would want to commit to as a group?
Right.
And if we get enough people signing up and committing as a group, then we could run it.
Right.
So if 20 people say that they want to play the old Gray Wolf scenario, the mini campaign that was, and have it adjudicated by somebody over a couple of days of the Labor Day weekend, or Tholian wedding cake assault scenario, and you've got enough players that are interested in playing both sides, and that's going to take a while,
Oh, no kidding.
then yeah, we can set that up. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, time there. Yeah, I know. I saw that expression. So, but yes, something I would like to have something different at the thing. And if you want to come down here and sit down and point at me and say type, type, type until I finish typing the thing out, I could type out the scenario we talked about like months ago
Mm-hmm.
that I still haven't gotten around to with like everything else going on in my life, blah, blah, blah. Um, the one about the salvager thing, which would be very different, and it could be a very different style of play because I was thinking about um, doing basically you remember Snapshot from Traveler?
No, I never was into Traveler.
Oh, okay. Snapshot was a separate standalone game in the Traveler universe
Mm-hmm.
that basically was a boarding ship combat thing where they had like deck plans
Oh, okay.
and individual units. So like you could play your character in it, or you could play like this is generic guy. He gets hit, he dies,
Right.
or he gets wounded or dies or whatever. So there is that as a possibility. Um, But what I was thinking about is doing something along those lines within the universe and making a decision on either using the Starfleet Marines rules for it or using a different, more snapshot kind of setup where you have individual units and deck plans for the ships involved. Because the ships involved in the salvager scenario would be small ships by SFB standards. Be a very, small engagement kind of thing. So, but that was basically all I had for Gamers Update stuff.
Cool. Okay. Well,
Thank you for having me on, Paul.
thank you for being here. You have a good night. So, whoopsies. Didn't think about this, talking about Scott packs would take so long, but I'm glad we took the time to go through it. And that definitely, in addition to the normal rules that most people know, we got to find some little nitty-gritty, some little nuggets there of interesting rules that I didn't know about. Didn't know that you actually could have a Scatterpack that could launch plasma torpedoes. Who knew? And of course, actually, I'm not sure anybody knew, but definitely an interesting fact. So, we're going to do the drone construction next week, so we can part 3 of the Great Drone series, and we'll continue droning on. And I know that's bad. And with that, I am Paul Franz. I'd bid you a good night.